Buenos días, buenas tardes, or buenas noches. ¿Cómo estás? Yo estoy muy bien. So to wrap up week 7, we're going to spend some time working on grammar that goes along with Unit 1, Lesson 2. On the screen right now, you see a copy of the notes that I have up. So you'll you want to print these off and follow along as we go through the video today or through the slides today. Or if you don't have a printer, please download these to your Google Drive and you can take some notes on your computer as we go through this today. So I'm going to switch over to my slides, but the slides you're about to see correspond to these notes. So we'll take about 8 or 9 minutes today to go through today's grammar and hopefully be able to teach you something new about Spanish grammar that has to do with definite and indefinite articles. All right, so just a little bit of an English connection here. A definite article, that's what we in English is called the word the. So anytime you say the, that's a definite article. We use these with nouns to indicate specific persons, places, or things. So again, we call it a definite article, but an example is the word the. All right, indefinite articles, those are words in English like a, an, or some. And we use indefinite articles with nouns to indicate non-specific person, places, or things. So I don't want you to get too confused by these grammar terms here. A definite article simply is the word the. I'm going to teach you how to say the word the in Spanish today. And an indefinite article are the words a, an, or some. And I'm going to teach you today how do you say a, an, or some. So here's an example in English. The boy is a friend. The is a definite article. A is an indefinite article. In Spanish, it would be el chico es un amigo. El is one of our definite articles. Un is one of our indefinite articles. So again, the big picture today is learning how to say the, a, an, or some. All right, so what does a definite article translate to in English? Well, just a second ago we talked about this. It's the word the. So that's what a definite article is. Definite articles are used with nouns to talk about a specific person, place, or a thing. So here's an example. I want the shirt from Target. So I have a specific shirt in mind, that blue one. That's the one that I want because definite articles talk about specific things. So I want the shirt from Target. What does an indefinite article translate to in English? Well, an indefinite article is the word a, an, or some. It could be any of those three. Those are all indefinite articles. Indefinite articles are used to talk about with nouns to talk about non-specific persons, places, or things. So for example, another one would be I want a shirt from Target. All right, I want a shirt from Target. Any shirt will do because it's a non-specific person, place, or a thing. All right, so those are examples of definite and indefinite articles. In Spanish, articles have to match nouns in gender, and we mean by gender something that's masculine or feminine, and number. And what number means, it either has to be singular or plural. All right, here's how. All Spanish nouns, even if they refer to objects, are either masculine or feminine. Okay, so every noun is either masculine or feminine. Almost all nouns that end in the letter O are going to be masculine. Now, there's some exceptions, but for the most part, that's a general rule. All right, almost all nouns that end in the letter A are feminine. And again, there's going to be some exceptions, but for the most part, nouns that end in A are feminine. All right, so that's how you can look at a noun in Spanish and determine if it's masculine or feminine. If it ends in an O, it's masculine. If it ends in an A, it's feminine. All right, here's a visual. Again, just to kind of recap that. In Spanish, articles match nouns in gender and number. All right, all Spanish nouns, even if they refer to objects, are either masculine or feminine. And again, if they end in an O, they're usually masculine. If they end in an A, they're usually feminine. So that's how we can look at a noun and label it as masculine or feminine. Okay? Here are my definite articles in Spanish. All right? There are 4 ways to say the word the because a word can either be masculine or feminine, and it can be singular or plural, and they all have to agree. So if it's singular and masculine, the word is el. All right? If it's singular and feminine, the word is la. If it's masculine and plural, it's los. And if it's feminine and plural, it's las. All right? So which one you use depends on the noun that comes first. All right? You have to look at that noun and determine if it's singular or plural, and if it's masculine or feminine. So look at the word chico, for example. Chico, it ends in an O, so I know that it's masculine, and it's just one. It's singular, so it has to be el. That's the one that would match up. Look at chica. Chica ends in an A, so I know that it's feminine. All right, and it's also singular, just one chica, so it's la chica. Now, when I look at the word chicos, it ends in an OS. All right, so that O tells me that it's masculine, and the S tells me that it's plural, so it would be los chicos. And then if I look at chicas, it ends in an A, so I know that it's feminine. There's an S on it, so it tells me that it's plural, so las chicas, all right? Because they have to agree in number, either singular or plural, and then gender, masculine or feminine, all right? So those are my definite articles. The indefinite articles, how do you say a, an, or some? Well, if the word is masculine and singular, it's un. If it's feminine and singular, it's una. If it's plural and masculine, it's unos. And if it's feminine and plural, it's unas. All right, and these words translate back to a, an, or some. Now again, how do you know which one to use? Well, you have to look at the noun, and you have to determine if it's masculine or feminine, singular or plural. So I'm back to my word chico again. All right, chico is singular, there's just one, so we know that it's singular, and we know that it ends in an O, so it's masculine, so it's un chico. All right, when I look at chica, it ends in an A, so we can determine that it's feminine, and there's just one of them, so it's una chica. Now the word chicos, all right, it's plural because of the S on it, and we know that the O is there, so that tells me that it's plural and that it's masculine. And unas chicas is feminine and plural. You see the A, that makes it feminine, and the S is on the end to make it plural. So they match up that way. That's how I can determine. Now, talking about singular and plural, in Spanish, to make a noun plural, so instead of saying chico, but to say chicos, we simply add an S on the end of the noun. Oops, sorry about that. We simply add an S onto the end of the noun if it ends in a vowel. So anything that ends in O, for example, amigo is a vowel. To make it plural, we just put an S on the end. So el amigo, but los amigos. Now, some words in Spanish end in a consonant, like the word mujer. It ends in an R. That's not a vowel. So how do you make that plural? Well, we add the letters ES to it. So la mujer, which we learned is the woman. To make it plural, to say the women, would be las mujeres, because I have to add an ES to the end. Then finally, if the word happens to end in a Z, what we have to do is we have to change the Z to a C and then add ES. All right, so for example, el lápiz is the pencil. So I get rid of the Z, I put a C on the end, and then I add ES. That's how I make it plural. So el lápiz changes to los lápices. So that's how you can make nouns that are singular. That's how you can make them plural. All right, so let's go through and do a little bit of practice here. Let's make these words plural. So I've got the word el estudiante, which we can tell it's singular. There's just one, and it's masculine. How would you make that plural? Hopefully you said los estudiantes, because I have to make it plural and masculine. So el changes to los, estudiante changes to estudiantes. Let's try a few of these. La persona. Right now it's singular and feminine. How would you make that plural? Las personas. All right, so instead of saying the person, we say the persons or the people. See? El papel. Singular and masculine. How do I make it plural? El papel is the paper. So to say the papers, los papeles. It ends in a consonant, so I have to add the ES to it. La amiga. Singular and feminine. How do I make that plural? Las amigas. All right? Una chica. Singular and feminine. So how do I make that plural? Unas chicas. And let's try one more. Un refresco. How do I make that plural? Unos refrescos. All right, so that's how I can change it from singular to plural. So let's try to put this all together as we wrap up here. Write the correct article before each of these Spanish nouns according to the English word after it. So I've got the word fruta here. What I want to say is the fruit. All right, so how would I say the in this case? Well, hopefully you said la fruta because it's singular and it's feminine. How about some galletas? What's my word for some here? Hopefully you said unas galletas because galletas is plural, all right, and then it's also feminine, so we have to say unas. How would I say the ice cream? El helado, all right, it's singular, just one, and it's masculine because it ends in an O. The French fries would be las papas fritas. It's feminine, all right? And it's also plural, so that has to match up. How would I say a soft drink? Un refresco, all right? Again, it's singular and it is masculine. A pizza. Una pizza, all right? It's singular and it's feminine. This one's a little tricky. It doesn't end in an O or an A. We said there were some exceptions. So how would I say the television? Well, for the most part, words in Spanish that end in I-O-N are always going to be feminine. So that will give you a clue here. Should be la televisión. How about some bicycles? Unas bicicletas. It's feminine and it's also plural. The books. Los libros. It's masculine, but it's also plural. All right, so that's our lesson on nouns, nouns, and then determining if they're masculine or feminine, singular or plural. And now we're able to say the, a, and some. So we're going to do some practice to see if you can put this all together. Hasta luego.